Hello, friends. Welcome back to another lifestyle series episode. Today's our plan is going to be to try and be short and sweet about this one because it's a relatively short and sweet kind of topic. But we're going to be chatting about how it's important to think, and this is in all things. I literally gave my children this lecture last night as we left cheer practice, that like the way we do one thing is the way that you do everything. Like it really is. And people will be like, well, no, like if they're low effort in one thing, but then you kind of like, if you take a deep look at things across the board, I would imagine that there's probably times that you're just like, well, this is good enough or something. And that may very well be what's stopping you from getting to like the full potential of what you're trying to accomplish. And I think as we wrap up the transformation challenge too, and you kind of see some people posting stuff, there's people who are super excited about their results who, tend to share like, this came up and this came up, but like I powered through, I did this, I've learned resiliency and grit and like things like that. And then sometimes there's people that like don't even make it to the group. Like they'll sign up and they don't even get there, or like they don't have their first check-in, or it doesn't get off the ground. And then there's a lot of gray area in between there. And not to say that like life doesn't happen with things like that, but I think sometimes it becomes like I don't even know what it sticks around where, if it's easy to say like, okay, well, I started this, it didn't go the way I wanted to, fuck it, I walked away. It gets easier to say that more often. Just like if you do one scary thing, it gets easier to say yes to the next scary thing. And so I think it's important to build on that. So you two, ready to go.
I have like feelings about this because I am that person and I'm like, I don't know, how I am in some things in life is not how I am in other things. But I very innately have like that. I grew up as an athlete and then I coached high performance sports. So like I am pretty A-type, organized, like can be easily obsessive, very much used to be all or nothing. And that's how I was with a lot of things. Like I had 2 jobs and worked, I don't know, from like 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. 5 days a week, when I was like 25 to 27. Like it was like all in kind of situation. But I've really had to actually work at being less of an obsessive personality type when it comes to my strength and like training and fitness and nutrition, because it was actually a bad pattern of mine, like a more negative pattern of mine, like personally, because I was obsessive. And that led to a lot of like just negative habits and like all or nothing mentalities and that type of thing. But I think a lot of this comes down to like awareness. It's either how you execute on things, and it even comes down to like, there's like that, people who make their bed in the morning are naturally more, like organized or like go-getter personality kinds of thing. Yeah. And, I don't make my bed in the morning and I never have. And I thought that was something that I like needed to do back in my like obsessive days. So I was like, I'm going to make my bed. And then Bob was like, why are you making the bed all the time? And I'm like, I don't know, I'm more productive, but like, that's not what it was. So it's more of like an awareness thing. And if you have certain habits or behaviors or things that you're wanting to either improve upon or do better or start implementing in a positive way in your life, it's more of like breaking those old patterns and setting new standards and putting that across like your life almost in like very small ways that you can kind of build upon. That was a lot of word vomit.
My argument for not making the bed is I want to climb right back into that cozy spot that I had the night before. Like,
I think
that was pretty. Why would I disturb that? It's already cozy. I'm getting right back into it.
Oh my God, with all the pillows. Yeah,
So
mine
I
does
am
not.
100% the med person. But then I also think like, so the two of you are sitting in offices, right? And I have 100 children invading every space of my house. And so I don't have an office. My desk also serves as my nightstand. And then my bed is directly next to me. And like, because we do like videos and stuff like that, actually before, I think it was before Jess hopped on, there was a hat like right at the end of the bed. And I was like, I can't do this, and like had to move it. And so for me, it's kind of like that, like cluttered space is like a cluttered mind. And so I feel like I can't sit down and work next to something that's not put together. And like the same thing, like if my desk is like messy and stuff like that, it'll get to me. So I'm team make the bed, but I think it also ends up being like most things are, it's dependent on the person and the situation. Like you're not sitting next to yours all day long.
Whereas like, Jess, you were talking and like just coming from my perspective or like me, myself, like I'm like the opposite of Jess. I am definitely not that type A, super organized, all or nothing person. So it's like, whereas maybe Jess has had to work hard at dialing things back, I have to work hard at dialing things up. And I think what you said about just being aware of those strengths and weaknesses and personality traits is going to be one of the most important things. Like, I just know that like if I don't have certain things in place, shit isn't going to get done because that is just gonna be my default. So I think it's kind of cool. Like Christina, you seem like maybe you're a little bit more of that type A too. So we kind of have the contrasting variables here. So I think that's going to have some really good stuff come out of it or in this podcast, because I certainly have to go the other way.
So
Yeah.
what are some of the things that you do? Because I know a lot of people who listen either are aligned with maybe Christina and I or with you. So what are some of the things that you do, Tyler, to help you like execute?
Routine and block scheduling. Like
block scheduling.
Yeah. And even then it is so fucking hard for me sometimes to even stick to my schedule, because I also have a little bit of ADHD and I'll all of a sudden have like other things pop up and I'm like, I didn't do a single thing on my schedule today. Like, where did that all go? But routine, I too find to be just absolutely massive. I was like, no, I am working out or I am doing X at this time every single day. For me too, it's also just having like little notes, things that I'm, kind of reading throughout the day of just keeping me on task, choices and what you're doing with your time and that kind of stuff I have found to be, pretty beneficial. But yeah, just really being aware. And I think too, part of it is like, you kind of got to be okay with it a little. Like if you are just, I think on that side, like it can be really easy, at least for me, to feel super guilty if I'm not working every single moment of the day, because I just know I can inherently maybe be a little bit, quote unquote, lazier. But I think that part of it too is just kind of being okay with it. Like that is just, I think, part of just who you are. And having some of that is going to be, I think, just the way you can continue to push forward and you can make sure that your cup is full and you are ready to go, because maybe I could only handle so much compared to you two, right? And I think that's something important to consider is like, individuals, you're only going to be able to handle so much, and there's nothing wrong with that amount depending on who you are. And so again, we just kind of keep coming back to that awareness.
Oh, sorry. I was just gonna say, I think your habits and like behaviors define who you are.
Right.
And so then you have to be aware of like what you do on a daily basis, what you are naturally inclined, what pulls you, right? And then you can actually start to implementing these things. Cause like Tyler, you probably weren't able to implement like having a routine unless you were like, oh, that's actually something that I need, right? And then you were able to lean into it. Whereas me, I didn't want to believe that I was the one holding myself back, and that I was the one stressing myself out. And so then I had to actually come to terms with that. And like the point of also forgiving yourself forgiveness is so important here, for who you are and what you're naturally inclined to do, because that's okay. That makes you you, right? Like if you are just naturally, you like to just hang out on the couch at night and watch TV, that's me. Or if you are just like really, really busy and don't like to do that and like to go and research shit and do hobby stuff, which is Bob in the evenings, like that's very different things that we like to do, but it's okay. Just becoming, like allowing yourself grace for who you are, but then also wanting to like build up some of these awareness and behaviors to not change it, but just like help you improve in certain areas. That's it.
I think there's ways of looking at both sides of that, right? And because of the kids, like I think of the way I have conversations like with that stuff a lot, but it applies to us as adults, right? So I think of the way that I am very like, and I think it's part of it's the ADHD thing too, where like my routines and my things that I want to have done for like different situations or like the order of operations with stuff, they can be frustrating for like Vic when we're trying to get out of the house at 3:30 in the morning to go on a road trip. And I'm like, I have to make the bed. And he's like, why are you making the bed? I'm like, because I want to come home to it being made. Like, or that night, it was like 10 o'clock at night and I was hanging up laundry. And he's like, this is so dumb. We could do this like when you get back. I'm like, I just need it to be done. And so like, I try to, one of the things we talked to Riker about when we found out about him and ADHD is like, using some of those things and looking at it as superpowers as opposed to as something that's detrimental. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So like, yes, can it be annoying sometimes that I need to have like all of this stuff done so that I can feel ready for like a situation. Yeah. But also shit's done. And like, no one else really has to think about it because I'm going to make sure that's taken care of because otherwise it's going to drive me up the wall. And so then I just do my best to be like, look, give me my space to accomplish this and we're all going to win in the end. If you try to stop me from it, it's going to cause much bigger problems than if you just let me do it. And the other thing all of this made me think about, and I'm sure you heard this a lot, Jess, with coaching athletes and then Tyler with like hockey and stuff like that. Like I was telling the kids last night, the whole thing about like the way you do one thing is the way you do everything after watching their routine, because they're doing full outs now where they have to do the whole routine and we're preparing for competitions. And Riker loves tumbling. He likes being strong and stunting the girls. But when it comes to dance that they have to do in the routine, not his specialty. And so, I tell him he looks like a noodle because he like does like crazy things with his arms instead of like straight arms and like things like that. And so I was like, you have to practice how you want to play. And so you can't do every single practice where you're a noodle and putting like half effort in, because then it's not gonna all of a sudden turn on necessarily. I mean, he does to like a certain extent, but he would shine even brighter out there if he were to practice that a little bit more, which is why if you like see Cora, like her face looks like it's going to fall off because she's smiling so hard through everything, because as a flyer, she's got to, right? And so I talk to clients about this too. And I think this kind of translates over to like a really good way to look at an off season, where like you still have to practice how you want to play. If you go from a diet where you were super dialed in and then we transition into a non-dieting phase and you go from being like so on top of things to fuck it and like I'm just going to do whatever I want, and you throw caution to the wind, it's going to be a lot, like, first of all, things are going to go south. And secondly, it's going to be a lot harder to transition into that life again. And so I think it's just really important to kind of look at the things like, so Tyler is not going to have an issue if we're like, Tyler, I'm going to need you to take an extra rest day this week. He's like, cool. Like we send him on a vacation or something. He's got it. A lot of people can't turn that off. And I mean, especially in our situation where I get emails from some international clients that roll through at midnight. I get emails. I have one client. She's in prep right now, so I don't know if that's what's waking her up super early. She's on the East Coast. I get her check-in at 2:44 my time every morning. And there's some I get at 7:00 every night. So really, if I were to let my inbox own me, I could be answering emails every single hour of the day and, look at it that way and not be able to turn off, And so I think that's really important because some people will drive themselves absolutely bonkers if they don't know how to say, I need this time on the couch. I need to take a step back. But I think the time blocking that you guys brought up is important for everybody. And that's something for me where like, I'm really good at very short time blocks. I will sit down at my desk when I finally get time, once I get people napped and like things like that, and be like, I'm going to do 1 hour of as much work as I can possibly get done. And I just power through. It usually ends up where I'll sit there until everything is absolutely done. But I like to tell myself, just get through that. I love having a very defined amount of time that I spend at the gym because the kids get 2.5 hours of kids club. I know that like, I'm going to try and fill that time up so that they can be with someone else. And then B, I can get cardio and a full lift done. There's no excuses. Just shut up and do it. And you kind of build this, like, I'm sure some people would think that was crazy, but like, I love the idea of just shut up and do it because it gets you to where you need to be, like to a certain extent with stuff.
I don't listen to Tony Robbins, but I was talking to somebody about executing on cardio. And when cardio gets really bad or just hard, like mentally, and they were telling me that they use the Tony Robbins 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, do it. And I was like, I don't know what that is. And they were like, well, it's just, you just count down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and you just do it. Like, it's like, you just execute, because you know that you have to do something. So and like these things that we're talking about, they don't need to be big, and actually they should be small.
Yeah.
Right.
Like
if you try to tackle a big, like a most important thing on your plate, it can become very overwhelming very quickly. And that's where like people just diving into their health and fitness from like 1 day a week strength training to 5 days a week, that's why they're not able to stick to it. But it's like, okay, so that's where like as you were talking, I was searching like why the make the bed thing was a thing, and it makes sense. So it's because it's an activity or a habit or a behavior change, a behavior that you do first thing in the day when it starts your day, and then you successfully do that, and it can cascade to the rest of your life or cascade for the rest of the day. So this happens a lot, I feel like, with clients when they maybe take a morning walk or get some kind of like morning movement. Like I've had clients that shift their training to mornings because after work is just like way too mentally consuming for them and they end up not getting there. And it works for them to go in the morning and they're like, oh my God, the rest of my day is so much better. And so it doesn't maybe need to be working out, and maybe it's not making your bed, but that's where cold showers in the morning comes in. There's research that shows that taking a cold shower in the morning, that's hard. Nobody wants to get into a cold shower. But now you've all overcome something that's kind of challenging. First thing in the morning, it gives you this self-confidence to like do other hard stuff.
Yeah.
Right. And that's where how you do one thing can kind of dictate how you do other things comes into play. Because if Christina just left her bed unmade, then mentally she feels exceptionally stressed out. And then she probably yells at her kids and like doesn't want to bake with them. And I know that you love baking and it can be stressful baking with children. I have no idea how you do that, but it's beautiful that you do. And like, then you snap at somebody at a client check-in and then you're like, oh my God. And then, or something, like I'm making up stories, and I'm sorry that I just used you as an example, but it can create.
That's 100% dead on though. Like if something gets like thrown off, it can become a cascade one way or the other. And so that's why, like, I think sometimes just setting that thing where you're like, I don't like doing this. I think a lot of people need to get used to, like, no matter what, I don't care if you're looking for a fitness goal or if you want to be better at your job, like whatever it is, people need to get better at doing things they just don't want to do. Like, you know, and then finishing them. And I think that's what translates over. a lot is like, okay, well, I did this one thing. I didn't really care about doing it, but now it's done. I can do this other thing. And like just finishing was another like big thing for like just me and my sanity and like with different stuff. And that could be maybe, I know I have a lot of client or program hoppers that will start a program, do 3 weeks of an 8-week program, and then they get bored and then they move to something. And then they're like, I don't understand why I can't get anything done. And it's like, because you don't finish anything. We got to learn to finish something. You know, Jillian, another coach, shared her thing about like an 8-week reverse diet, where like even that can be like, I'm sure if a lot of coaches ask their client, okay, we were going to do an 8-week cut, but I want to extend it to 12 weeks. Is that okay? A lot of times they're going to be like, fuck yeah.
Yeah.
You try to push a reverse diet and they're like, but why?
But I want to diet again.
Right. And so, you know, I think that a lot of the like the way you do one thing is the way you do everything is shaking off, or for me, I try to look at it as an opportunity for improvement of like, okay, well, I walked up the stairs and I looked and there was like socks there that I could pick up, like, and so I'm going to pick them up and I'm going to put them all the way away and I'm going to take care of it or something. And then overall, like things just get better. Like getting home from these trips, the last thing I wanted to do is go to the gym. And, you know, but I also want to be back into it, but I don't want to deal with those first couple of days where you get back into it. And I've gone and just been like, stop being a little bitch, do your workout. And I PR'd yesterday and today. And so I'm like, all right, fine. I mean, I might kind of feel like hammered shit while I'm doing it, but it's getting done. And I just think that like, I know I used to be a person who, I mean, I was like my son. It's funny. Him and I are the exact same person. And so that's why with a lot of things, I'm trying to be like, sweetheart, like, I know how you feel in these situations. I know how your brain is working with this. And like,
Right, you're not Ben.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Ben's like, listen, nobody, that
Dinosaur.
Child, the Tasmanian devil and him are the same person, or a T-Rex. Yeah. Um, and so, you know, I'm like, listen to what I've learned and like, let's try this now and it'll help you get like places with stuff. And I just think sometimes we just need better work on better quality execution, top to bottom, and it can help turn things around.
Yeah, I think like don't underestimate the small stuff. Like you talked about, like getting the sock, doing the dishes with soon, you know, like I think a lot of those small things, they just do kind of build because your initial reaction, your initial habit becomes, well, I'm just going to get it done. Right. Like it kind of becomes part of like who you are. And so I think we've talked about this a little bit, you know, in the past. And I think, you know, especially with our lifestyle clients, someone who's maybe never meal prepped before, someone who has never had a consistent, like these can be quite, you know, intimidating new habits that they're trying to work on. And it is going to be hard at first, but that doesn't mean that you can't get to a point where it does become that automatic thing where it really isn't even a choice anymore. Right. Like you don't, it's not a choice. Like you just do it. Right. And so I think it is like, important then to identify those areas in your life where it's like, no, this is where I want something to be a non-choice, right? Like the meal prep, the tracking, the gym, the drink a gallon of water a day, whatever it might be, you know, and then start kind of having that at the forefront of your mind, putting reminders on your phone, scheduling it. Like busy parents, schedule it. Like it seems like more work at first, but it is going to save you work in the long run. It's like meal prep. It seems like a lot of like, 3 hours, you know, have you ever tried cooking each meal individually? It takes so much more time. And so it really is then about starting to stack these little habits, you know, throughout your life. And it just kind of, all of a sudden it's like, oh, like I don't even think about it anymore. It's just part of my life now. And it's like what you thought was like so hard and seemed like so much time, it's just normal now. Right. And so there is always going to be that transition period. But once you do get past that, it is going to be just that much easier. And it's going to allow you to take that next step up and take on more.
Absolutely. And something that I noticed, like that you said, Tyler, that made me think about, it's not in the way necessarily how you execute on said behavior, but it's about how you talk about it within yourself, and how you create that belief in yourself that you are that person. Because a lot of this comes down to the awareness, but also the belief that you can. And it sounds woohooey, but it's positive self-talk.
Yeah.
Or just even like talking to yourself like you are that person, right? So if you always say, I don't have time for blank, it's hard to do blank. I don't like blank. Yeah, of course. It's going to be shittier and it's going to be hard and it's going to be more difficult to overcome things. I am so freaking fast and hard on my clients when they use that kind of language in their check-ins. It's like not even funny. I'm like, yo, so thank you for your check-in. I'm going to talk about this week's check-in, but I'm going to highlight these parts of your check-in right now. And I don't want to see these words in your check-in again, because you are creating that outcome for yourself. So this is how we're going to do it instead. Right. And I think about, like I want my clients to instill themselves with empowering words or statements or beliefs that they can do it. They're maybe not there yet, but that doesn't mean that you won't ever be. And so they have to really build up that trust, like those reminders in your phone. I even say, like, put Post-it notes on your mirror so you can wake up and you see it, right? And even something very small as I am worthy or I can do hard things can actually translate into meal prepping or some shit like that. Like it's that like self-talk from the awareness, like bringing that awareness that that's a hard thing for you to do, but then reframing that and like stopping and pausing and reframing that. And then that leads to the behavior and that leads to the execution. And then, like you said, Tyler, the like building blocks and building up of those behaviors and advancing of those habits.
Yeah.
Oh, that was a lot. I feel like I'm just word vomiting. Like,
no, I love it. I feel like we've all been doing that when we start, and it's kind of perfect because it's one of those things that, I mean, like I said, when we started, like this topic doesn't need an hour and a half of time. You know what I mean? It goes back to what I know I've said a million times with stuff is that a lot of it, when it comes to everything with building this lifestyle up and having it be successful for you, like we're not reinventing the wheel here. It's not something crazy and there's not really any like huge secret out there when it comes to it. It's just doing it again and again and doing it well.
And I mean, I think like the pursuit of a fitness or a healthy lifestyle, whatever, like I think just automatically comes with a lot of personal development too. Like, I just think that just due to the nature of it, like, and just how much you kind of do have to start being aware of, like, I think they just kind of do go hand in hand. So I think that's also where we kind of, maybe to put it in Jess's word, get in the wooey hooey stuff. Like, yeah, I think it's just like a very natural part, like, of this journey that you are gonna, uncover a lot, because it is something that, we try and like you're trying to be super consistent with, and that can be hard, and life is messy, and like you're still trying to do this one thing, and it does require certain things, right? Like, that's just the reality of it, right? Like, we can talk, this and that, but like the reality is you do need to track, you do need to do this. And so like you are going to come up against things that are hard. And so I think, yeah, it's just kind of that natural partnership that those two things have.
Yeah. And like that note about tracking, like for people who are listening to take away like concrete things that they can do. Like you said, Tyler, set up alerts in your phone, block schedule. I use Google Calendar, and I block schedule things out. That's why we track these things, right? I actually had a client who was super visual, and she created a calendar, like literally beside her, where she would sit, and it would be like she would cross off days, or like she would be like, oh, okay, yesterday I didn't do anything, so today I need to do XYZ, right? So it was very in her face. Like I said, like Post-its on your mirror, like it comes down to your personality type and what you feel like is going to work for you. Christina has to make her bed in the morning. Cool. Like those, I have things that I need to do in the morning that are not making my bed, but it's the same like morning routine at night. This is what I also do to chill out. So just some of those structures can help kind of build upon. Ooh, Atomic Habits will change your life.
I was gonna bring that up at some
I
point.
haven't read it.
Glad you
how long
did.
would it take me to read it?
Yo, it's
Not
so
very
good.
long. It's
No.
really quick.
Okay. Are you finding it?
It's a quick read. It's good.
Is it worth
If you're watching on
buying, or
YouTube.
should I just go to like a library? It's not something you would read more than once, is it?
Oh yeah, I think
Really?
so.
I'd read it more than once.
Yeah.
All right, maybe I'll order it.
It's really good.
Because then
We talk about,
I just
like-
feel like now my clients need to prepare for the fact that I'm going to be sending out like reference
Read this book.
page 37, paragraph 2.
There you go. Anybody who's having trouble setting up habits, read Atomic Habits by James Clear. Done.
Oh, it's 13.
Podcast done. No.
Yeah. No, I mean, because I just feel like, anybody who's here listening to this, right, and who's dove into all of this side of crazy, you have that crazy in you. You're spending time out of your day listening to a podcast about these kinds of things. So like it matters to you, right? To like level up. And so I think just challenging yourself in some of those situations allows you to grow into being the kind of person that you're shooting towards becoming. And the tricky part, right? And like I tell my clients as they get into bodybuilding and stuff like that, where they'll be like, well, I hit the goal I had originally set, but like now I kind of have a problem with my shoulders and I wish they were this. And I was like, welcome to bodybuilding. You're here. Like,
Welcome to being forever small.
Yeah.
Like something will always be a little bit changeable. But the good news is you already saw what you could do. And so now we do that. And you just keep finding something else to grow into. And that was a game changer for me. And I get a lot of this like from my husband, because he's very much like that person where he's nowhere near as like crazy as I am with like certain stuff. His office gives me so much anxiety that I just like don't go into it. Cause if I do, I start like cleaning and I'm just like, ooh, this is terrible. So I don't know how he does it. Love you, babe. But he like pushes me but also like tries to teach me to chill out and things like that. And so I used to be the person who would just instantly get very self-deprecating of like, well, you screwed that up, so maybe this just isn't for you, and like things like that. And then for me, I think a lot of it, and as part of it was the Navy, probably because I was in like a very like new situation where it's like, shit, you literally need to learn to swim or sink. And then motherhood like did it for me, where I refuse to be a lackluster version of myself when I have these 4 humans that look up to me in a situation. And so how dare I ask them to be their best selves if I'm not doing that and showing them? And I mean, I was thinking, so actually really nerdy. I was doing deadlifts today and I had to pick up 230 pounds. And Vic is 260. And so I've set this goal if I want to get there by the end of the year. And I do this when I'm running too. I will put myself in this mental space where something terrible has happened. And if I cannot pick this thing up, or like I did it yesterday with squats, I'm like holding somebody on my back and I have to like be able to get over this thing, or I'll do it when I'm running, that I have to keep going at this pace for that long. I always think of The Walking Dead, which is super weird.
I was going to say zombies.
Yeah. I'm like, I have to get this medicine to that place in this amount of time as fast as I can. And I'll put myself in like those mindsets where I'm like, something's going to go wrong if you can't do this. And it helps me. Like I can pick it up if I put myself, like take it away from me with that. And then, I think just the example thing is a big thing for me, where it's bled over now into like a million different parts of my day. there's a million different areas that I could be significantly better at and like not be so crazy and things like that. But, you know, I think it's important just to find the reasons for why you're spending time listening to a podcast like this, why you've gotten interested into these kinds of things and what you want to change for. And then just like, how can we start practicing being that person you see at the finish line? Because if you start doing all of those every day, you get there, and then it's that much easier to hang out because you've already laid the foundation of habits.
Yeah.
Word
Boom.
vomit again. More word vomit. I get like dry mouth.
The title of this should be Word Vomit.
Huh? Just word vomit.
Word
might
vomit about motivational shit.
But what would Elizabeth have to do for the thumbnail if we did that?
I don't know.
Just that
Oh,
like puking emoji.
Yeah.
It'll be the Atomic Habits book.
Yeah.
There we go. There we go. I don't know. There might be copyright issues there, even though we're helping sell for them.
It's true.
So,
It's
Yeah.
true.
all right, guys, you got any quick closing thoughts for us? I feel like I
No.
have your flannel, Jess.
Is it from Target?
Oh no, mine's from Amazon, but it's like the exact same black and white. Like
One's
I
definitely
mean,
from
Amazon probably got it from Target and then just
probably
resold
it's
it.
become my favorite.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, I feel like we rapid fire killed that one. So please, if you're listening, it means so much and it helps out a lot if you could just take a quick second and leave a review or even just like some stars or a thumbs up if you're on YouTube or anything like that. It just helps make sure that we can be as helpful as possible. And then if you leave any comments for us, I go through those and try to make sure that any ideas, things like that, get populated into our list. And then finally, if you follow us on Instagram, so there is an account for the Pro Physique Code. You can send messages into there. Our friend Elizabeth manages that Instagram for us, but she literally sent over like a topic request yesterday where somebody had said like, hey, could you guys talk about, I think it was a very specific type of like nighttime routine or something like that. And so the more ideas we get like that, we can make sure that we're serving you well and that we're here not just rapid fire vomiting about random stuff. So, all right, guys. Well, that was fun and we'll chat again next week.
Bye.
Bye.